This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. The side project series of this podcast gives me a lot of latitude regarding subject matter. Occasionally, I like to go down a rabbit hole on a specific band. But I think this is the first time I've been able to do that with the band members themselves. Please welcome Robert Poss and Karen Haglof of Band of Susans. They've both been on the podcast. In fact, they were very early episodes, and we were past due for a catch-up session. Both Robert and Karen have new albums out, so it seemed like the perfect time to do a deep dive into Band of Susans and talk about their new music. We actually ended up doing it the other way around. Band of Susans is one of the bands I can point to and say they changed the music I listen to without being hyperbolic. And it all stemmed from an album cover with my favorite car on it. Karen left the band after the Love Agenda album and went on to do a few minor things like medical school, oncology, not music stuff. Robert has kept his feet firmly in the business by doing all kinds of unique projects, including solo albums. As I mentioned, they both have new releases this year. Drones, Songs, and Fairy Dust by Robert and One Hand Up by Karen. Look them up wherever you get music. Both albums really touch on so many different styles of music. Get them both and you'll definitely find something for you in there. Follow them both on social media. Just look up their names. They're easy to find. Look us up at Performance ANX on socials and grab our merch at performanceanx.threadless.com. Keep us awake at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Now prep yourself for My Love Agenda on Band of Susans with Robert Poss and Karen Haglof on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Hair and makeup, because I know this is audio only.
I just finished it myself.
Oh man, you look great. You look marvelous.
As do you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Hi, guys. How you doing? It's been a little while.
Yeah.
I'm trying to prop up my phone here.
You got over your illness? Can you hear me okay? Should I put some headphones on?
I can hear you okay.
Okay.
Good. And I can hear you just fine.
I'd say I'm like 80% over it. So thankfully I have my cough button here. So
I get it.
So if you hear me start hacking and wheezing, just keep going. Mm-hmm. Don't even worry about it. I know you're a doctor, but don't worry about it. I'm okay.
Yeah, we'll take it aside.
The doctor is in.
Situation, yeah.
See, there we go. I can hear. In fact, I've got a lozenge and I've timed it so wrong. I haven't quite finished my lozenge yet.
Well, make sure you finish that. Don't inhale it in the wrong tube because we can't do the Heimlich over the FaceTime.
Oh.
Put yourself with the chair.
I'm in trouble then.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, guys, this is going to be an even more relaxed and casual episode than normal because it's what I call the side projects episode, one of the side projects episodes where we talk about a topic because way back when I started doing this podcast, you were both so kind to be some of my first guests. So
yeah, when was that? I was trying to think what year that was.
That was probably 2019.
20. Seems like it was earlier than that.
It may have been. It's been a while. So you guys were. I don't think I had done 10 episodes yet when I had both of you guys on.
Yeah, we were really early.
Yeah. And I'm almost at 400 now. So
Wow. That's impressive.
So thank you. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit because you're both in one of the bands that I found incredibly influential to me, Band of Susans.
Right.
Well, that is all. Robert is the linchpin. I believe I just read that. Unfortunately, Steve Albini passed.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. So we are recording this literally the day after he had passed. So it'll be a few weeks before it comes out. But as of right now, he has been gone for one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So unexpected. No,
totally unexpected. Yeah.
So it was a heart attack, I believe, right?
Yeah.
That's what I read.
That's what I heard. I mean, I know even in 1988 when we were in England, he had I know he consulted a doctor about some heart issue.
That's right, didn't he?
But I just assumed in the interim of many, many decades that whatever it was would have been straightened out. But that's the extent of my medical knowledge about this condition, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I just remember him as being a pretty much of a straight arrow back in the day.
Yeah. No, and everything I've seen of him recently, videos and everything else, he looked like a picture of health. So terrible, just terrible.
Rest in peace, Mr. Albini, and thank you for all the amazing work throughout the decades.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, now the actual topic of the podcast, Band of Susans and Robert and Karen's 2024 releases, which is what brought us to this point. So I saw, Robert, you've released an album this year, and Karen, you're releasing one?
Mine came out in January called, let me look at the cover. Drones.
I got one here, but it's only a digital of mine.
Drones, Songs, and Fairy Tales. And that's my, I think my my fifth solo release since Band of Susans. I had two things in 2002, and then I had something 2010, and then I had something in 2018. You know, I'm a late adopter, a slow learner, something, you know.
You're crafting.
But it's
like a fine wine.
This time around, you know, I felt I was ready to put something out, and I did. And it's really fun to have something out, you know, new again. Although, given how fast time moves, it's January, so it's all new.
I know. It's like, what? That was...
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Karen's new release, which I don't know anything about, but you'll have a chance to tell us, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, what was on your release, Robert? Tell me a little bit more about yours.
Well, you know, like most things, I have one foot in sort of rock stuff and the other foot in more ambient, experimental, serious, drone, whatever. So there's like 3 songs on the record that I would consider sort of, you know, in the Band of Susans vein of rock songs. And then there's one sort of synthesizer thing, and then the rest they're primarily atmospheric things built around drones. Some have drums, some don't. You know, for a long time, I was doing music for choreographers and for film. Right. And which was great. Unfortunately, I'm no longer working with those choreographers because they've folded up their companies or have passed on. But, you know, I sit around and I improvise things and I make things up and I play with my guitars and pedals. And at some point, something comes together and gels. And I think, well, it might be worth pursuing. But I'm so lazy these days, I don't really perfect anything. You know, I mean, I sort of...
That's the way to go.
You know, I just sort of, at a certain point, I'm just like, that sounds pretty good. And, there's that one note. Well, I'll fix that. But I'm not going to redo the bass line. I like the bass line. It's, you know, it's got a few mistakes. But, you know, the funny thing is that I used to be so obsessed with that final 2% of recording quality and noise. And now I'm like, I don't care. It sounds good, you know? I use a good microphone and, you know, I think it worked. And so I've become in my old age very, you know, lackadaisical about things like that, which on the other hand is really good because it means I don't endlessly fuss over things.
Right.
I do remix things endlessly to try to get the balance I want. But in terms of the composition, I put down a couple guitar parts, a bass part, and I'm done, you know, on to the next one.
Wow. Oh, wow. And so there's like you're saying, there's quite a mix of material on your album. And I noticed, Karen, your album is very similar in that vein. It's
all over the map.
It is literally all over the map. I mean, there's sounds.
It's a sonic adventure. It's a little journey, an adventure through my brain. I guess
there's literally sounds from India, from New York City, from Wyoming, from the desert.
Washing machine, spin cycle in the Arizona desert. Some alarm bells from a Florida hospital. Yeah, I broke a little new ground for myself.
Oh,
because I think these days
for other people, but for me it is.
These days, I think of Karen primarily on horseback. You know, I think of her riding. You know,
if only that were true.
Yeah.
If only that were the truth, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, those are great images, though, and I know you love to get out there and do that.
Yeah. So I mean, a couple of these. You know, the title of the record is "One Hand Up," and it starts with a loop of my niece on the mechanical bull outside the Jackson Hole Rodeo.
Oh, great.
she's on the bull and she's riding along, and my nephew and I are yelling at her, one hand up, because she had two hands down. So, and then every so often, and then she would go, no. So I was, of course, putting that on my iPhone. So I brought it into the studio and got Mario, my partner in crime, and almost everything. So let's make a loop out of this. Let's make a song out of this. And it actually, yeah, it's pretty wild ride. We had a lot of fun with that.
Her scream of no is killer. That's like a horror movie quality.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a really good one. Yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PERFORMANCEANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD. So you hit on so many different things on this. So there's, disco club with Club 2121. There's Western.
Kind of a space age disco. Yeah.
There's Western. There's jazz. You even hit like a stoner doom kind of vibe with Day 34.
Yeah, everybody seems to pick up on that one. Yeah, that was definitely the kind of, it's my answer to Drone with the riff thrown in, and then there's a segue in the middle where you're supposed to think of a 1950s black and white movie.
Yeah,
and,
cool.
And actually, I don't know if you know this, I'm doing 2D animation now, so I've got animations in the works for about half of these songs.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
They'll detract, or it'll make it better, or people will hate it, or they'll like it.
A while ago, Karen, I did some kind of feedback thing for you. Was that ever used at all?
It's in the hopper for the next bunch of stuff.
Good, okay, well, that's cool.
No, I mean, it's, COVID kind of messed everything up.
Everything, yeah.
For 2020, I had this whole plan. We had this bunch of songs that were probably more like what I'd done before.
Right.
And the plan was to go down to Mitch's in North Carolina and go through that whole thing. And then COVID happened, and the studios all kind of closed, and Mitch wasn't seeing anybody, and we tried remote mixing back and forth, which was just torture for him, probably even more than for me.
Right.
As I would be going, well, could we do this, make this little tiny change, this little 2% change, and probably in the overall scheme. But so it ended up, we ended up with different songs. And then Steve Almas, who's been playing bass and producing, kind of ducked out of this one because he was working on his own project. So, I played some bass. Charlie, my keyboard guy, drummer, is also an excellent and Mario chipped in on guitars, and Mario and I produced the thing. So there's really kind of probably a sense of, like, we're one hand up now, It's just like all the, the stops are open. We're just, okay, let's just see what we get. And so
that sounds great. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, in some ways, very much I feel like, okay, this is me really out there,
But that's cool. You got to be out there sometimes, right?
I mean, no guts, no glory, as they say.
It definitely sounds like you've taken more chances on this one than in your previous work. So I think this is amazing. Like Slinky 66, that might be one of my favorites on the album.
All this winding space together in our best place. Pearls fall from a broken necklace in the clouds. Blades across
That and Day
That
34.
one's got a really awesome video with it too.
Oh, sweet.
Come on, yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. So
Yeah.
Robert, your album, was this a collection of works, or did you write all this music as an album?
No, I tend to accumulate stuff. And when I've accumulated enough stuff, and I've rejected the stuff that I was in love with briefly and then decided was terrible, and get rid of those, I sort of, I assemble something, and then I think, well, okay, it needs a little bit balance in some direction. So, like, for instance, in this one, I think I had 2 rock songs. I thought, I'd already had the title Drone Songs and Fairy Dust, and I said, well, I've got plenty of drones. I need another song. So then I worked on something. Some of the stuff was actually fished out of, on 2 of the songs, they were old 4-track cassette tapes I had.
Oh, wow.
Of stuff that was actually meant to be ultimately a Band of Sousa song, but was rejected. And I was able to, and I didn't have the 4-track cassette anymore. I only had a mix. So through the trickery of this, through the trickery of the studio, I was able to sort of process and work through these 4-track or these stereo mixes and then add stuff to it. Quite tricky, but I'm really happy with the way it came out. And also it's there's a blend, because obviously stuff coming from cassette is a whole different timbre and feel and everything than stuff, from the modern era of digital stuff. But in any case, I assembled a bunch of stuff, and I maybe had half the songs, and then I said, I am going to release this. It's been a while. It was 2018, my last one, and I really should put something out. So I figured a few more things out and just decided it was ready. But the trick was the sequencing, because it doesn't really matter so much these days, because every kid listens to everything for about 10 seconds and moves on. But for us old timers,
like what I do is I pick my favorite track, and I'm not
us old timers, like to sometimes listen to songs in a sequence, and I wanted to
have that available.
Yeah, I wanted to have it available. So it was very tricky to figure out, I was making like note cards and stuff, like what should go where. And also, if you have stuff in the same key or the same type, maybe you do want it to follow, or maybe you don't. So I went through those permutations. But at a certain point, I just said, okay, I've got 16 things, I'm done. And most of the songs are kind of short. Lately I've been doing a lot of, in the press releases, past CDs, I was doing many more longer things, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. But this one, I'm looking at it now, I think the longest thing is only about 4.5 minutes, which is really unusual for me, because I tend to like to kind of drone on and repeat and whatever. The fade can be 4 minutes on my stuff, Yeah. But anyhow, it was sort of fun to do something and limit myself. And I also kind of thought, well, people's attention spans are different now, and I kind of like the idea of trying to work within a somewhat more of a strict time thing, which means I guess the next thing I do is going to have 20-minute drum solos or something. I'm going to have to compensate.
Well, if you will recall, all that stuff that you did for me was for an 11-minute jam. So
right.
You'll be on the next thing.
But and I had since they're instrumentals primarily, 3 of the things have lyrics. So then I have to come up with titles, and which is fun, because it's like writing poetry. There are no limitations. And I was reading all this. I go to these. I'm an avid reader. I read. What I do for pleasure is read. And I will read history. I will read fiction. I'll read good fiction. I'll read thrillers. And I was going through this period of reading all these espionage novels, everything about MI5 and MI6. And I was watching Slow Horses on TV, and I read all those books. And I get fixated on a certain period of espionage. I've read every spy novel ever made.
Wow. That's not a genre I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and I really, so for instance, there's a song called Sea's Green Ink, right, which is a pun, because the head of MI6, when it started in, I think in the 20s or the 30s, as the British, sort of spy agency, the head of MI6 was called C, just the letter C. And he always signed things in green ink. That was his trademark, green ink. So the title was Seeds apostrophes green ink. But I thought, why not make it more obscure? How about Seize, S-E-I-Z-E, green ink, which is absolutely meaningless.
Right.
But it's a little pun for myself, you know?
But it has a nice ring to it.
There's a nice ring. And you know, I mean, the thing that says Hagstrom Music on Hold, I had this Hagstrom guitar that I was sort of getting fixed up, and I recorded something with it. So, okay, it's Hagstrom, you know?
I love that. To me, that's got this really great sound.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you remember back in like the late 80s, early 90s, IRS was doing these No Habla series of albums, like Robbie Krieger would do an album and would have
I'm not familiar with that, but I kind of sense what you're saying. Yeah.
That song has this feel, that kind of feel to it. And there's kind of a group of younger artists that are doing something similar. Like this guy I just had on, Jason Achilles, and he's doing something similar where he's mixing, science and guitar rock, and it's he's really, he actually works for NASA's JPL. So
wow, the thing about that Hagstrom fragment is that I actually allowed myself to sort of play lead guitar.
Right.
It was like okay, well, I enjoy doing this, and I haven't done that kind of lead guitar for many years, but like, I had this nice little progression, so why not do an instrumental with lead guitar? Because I'm the boss here. Right. I can do whatever I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
No one's really going to care.
You can do whatever you want.
And there's one other thing I should mention. There's something called Imaginary Music on Hold, which is this very kind of soft, almost major seventh jazz thing. That came about because some guy out of the blue asked me, I get all these requests on Facebook for people I don't know to do things, and I'll always do them because I'm sort of a slut. And so, he gave me like a drum pattern and said, in a vague chord progression, I said, this is really outside my area of expertise. Like, this is all like a nice soft jazz progression. Like, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, I would like you to do guitar parts and bass parts and this. And anyways, I started working on it. And then I said, listen, tell me something about yourself. And he said, I'm going to pay you and all this stuff. And he basically just ghosted me. And I said, so I erased what he had given me. Oh. And I just took my guitar parts and made something out of it. And that's why, because it was something that's so atypical, but I just said, well, and then I thought this is kind of like smarmy, jazzy, something or other. So I'm thinking, this is probably what you would have on hold, like some thing, anyways.
That's one of my favorites.
That's one of the quirkier ones on the record, I would say.
Oh, that sounds great.
Well, that and Foghorn Lullaby, I think, are two of my favorites.
Yeah, the Foghorn thing, I was doing some piece. I work with some visual artists. There's a woman named Margaret Widmer who's an Austrian who lives in Amsterdam, and she does these really elaborate installations, art installations, sometimes involving people dressing in costumes, and it's almost impossible to describe. But at some point I was doing a piece for her, and I got really interested in foghorn. So I went to there's a BBC sound repository. And so I basically downloaded every foghorn I could find. And then I started
find a lot of it too.
And then I started sort of tuning them, pitch shifting them a little bit, and then discarding the ones I didn't like. And I just kind of thought, I don't know, I mean, if a foghorns are just another drone, right? It's just and it is that very dense.
That's the beauty of it, yes.
Yeah, it has this dense, almost like a tuba or a baritone sax, kind of low frequency thing. So, I put that together. And again, that was for my own enjoyment, And I also thought it would be fun to have at least one thing on the recording that was just totally different than anything else. Why not?
That is so cool. Yeah. And I've got a question about Out of the Fairy Dust, because it sounds like it's 2 songs. So I was just curious if it was created that way or if the idea came afterwards.
Yeah, see, there's Out of the Fairy Dust and there's Into the Fairy Dust. And, fairy dust is this concept which really comes from the novelty tape by the Trogs, of them in the studio. The band, the Trogs. And there's this famous tape, and they're saying, well, we're going to do all this guitar stuff, and then you, meaning the producer, you're going to do the fairy dust. You're going to compress and EQ and add reverb and stuff. And so I've always referred to production techniques as fairy dust, but I actually like the concept of fairies and fairy dust. I mean, I do. Yeah. So Out of the Fairy Dust is really 2 separate things. There's this one kind of dronal thing, and then I did something. I bought a mandola, which is like a mandolin, but an octave lower. And I also had a Fender Telecaster that I tuned in a dulcimer tuning, which is very straightforward open tuning, but it's specific to the dulcimer. So I just had this strummy dulcimer mandola thing. And, I just thought, why not have this emerge from the more ethereal and abstract and ambient fairy dust.
Okay.
It sounds like it would come right out of there.
Yeah. And then I sort of did the reverse with the, Into the Fairy Dust, where I took something and then a little more concrete and then had to go into something abstract. But they were separate pieces that were merged.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of, of these days, cross-fading, and you can merge things any way you want, and you can reverse things. And I very often will do a track and then I'll reverse it and I'll add that track in because I love the sound of backwards stuff. And especially with drones, it doesn't really change the attacks very much. It just gives a slightly different overall texture, timbre. So, I just like the idea of fairy dust. I don't know. It appeals to me.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Speaking of fairy dust, Karen, you have a song that when it started, I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then as it got into the song, I thought, this is incredible. Girl versus guitar.
Oh.
That is so cool. I love the soloing stuff going all over the place on that. Something that you kind of scripted?
That came about out of trying to learn animation.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so I had this whole, and I still have this idea, and it's in animatic stage now, but of a girl out in the field playing her guitar and getting stung by a bee, and then going into a dream world where she's flying around and playing the guitar. And so that's where the dive bombs come from and all that. Just, so it's like this whole progression, it starts out, she walks into a field and is says very kind of prosaically, "Oh, I'm just a little girl and I'm playing guitar. Nothing bad will happen to me." And then the bee comes in and zaps her in the neck, and then, "Oh no!" And then we start the song.
That's great. That's great.
It is awesome. And then there's just these solos going on throughout it. It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, I can't take all the credit for that. Mario was huge on the dive bomb, so. And Charlie played a great fuzz bass part. It was so funny. He came in and he heard the song and goes, "This part needs to be a fuzz bass." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm not sure about that," but Charlie was right.
So was this album constructed from the beginning? Was the idea to make it such a variation of sounds and genres? Was it the idea from the start?
No, I mean, I've got, it just, again, the 2020 there was a whole different record that probably would have come out in 2021 had not all the events of 2020 occurred. But,
right.
It's kind of like, I like to think of my little musical ecosystem kind of dissipated for a while and came back together in a different way. And so, there are some songs there that, like Day 34, that was written in probably 2019 or so with the plan. And that was mixed by Mitch down in North Carolina, kind of before everything kind of went kablooey.
Okay.
And so some of these songs were not written until after COVID. I mean, Bus Driver is about, the bus drivers waiting for him at the bus and he's got COVID. So, so some of them are, 2021, 2022 songs. And they clearly, altered the way, I thought about the tracks and how I was going to put the tracks out. And it was hard, like Robert said about his record, to figure out how to sequence them, for those people that actually would maybe listen to them in sequence.
In sequence.
That's me.
So that was a little bit of a difficulty because, I hear them and I go, well, I know all these songs belong on this record. I know they all belong together, even though they don't naturally segue necessarily one into the other. If here's one rock song and I will go to the next rock song, it was kind of like, so it's kind of like, well, what weird genres kind of twist will go into this next weird genre twist, which will go into this more normal rock song, which will go into, something else.
Oh,
so.
it's awesome because they have like the slightly jazzy Slinky 66 going into the disco Club 2121 into the stoner doom Day 34. It's
into the Prague 13 or 8. The time signature is 13/8, which I had no idea until Charlie told me. I just knew what the riff was.
Well, as much as One Hand Up is a really cool way to start the album, the end is amazing. I love Route 66 Revisited. That is such a great track.
Is just me. I mean, and Jonathan Cain came in and played something for me. He did the drum riff on Slinky 66. Okay. And he played this other song that didn't end up on anything, but we cannibalized his drum track and made it a long loop. And then I played bass and we sampled some saxophones and I played the guitar. And that's what, and at the time and now I'm very I'm watching a lot of movies lately and I'm thinking cinematically and I like soundtracks and that movie or that song to me sounds like it belongs on the end credits of something.
It absolutely does.
So it's my instrumental except for there's one line, it's bumpy tonight.
That's one of my favorites on the album. That's one of my my top 2, 3 on the album. That Day 34, Slinky 66.
I mean, I like all of them on the album. It was just hard to figure out what direction, what goes after what. But thank you. I'm pleased that you like that one.
Oh, I absolutely love it. The two of you played together in Band of Susans because I do want to touch on that a little bit.
But before that, and where I met Karen was with Reese Chatham.
Yes, that's kind of where I wanted to start.
Reese was sort of the inspiration for a lot of things, but he got me and Karen together.
Yeah.
And then, Karen joined the band and was on a couple tours and, more than one record, I guess, Love Agenda.
Yeah, Love Agenda. And then we did the Peel Sessions.
And the Peel Sessions, yeah.
What can I do? Look for you, raise my way again.
Karen was always my first choice for guitarist. I mean,
That's so nice of you to
she was
say.
always my first choice. And when she was available, we got her. And when she wasn't, we had to go to other people. But she
And
was
then I went
always
to
my
medical
first.
school.
Yeah, little things like that.
Right.
Little things like medical school. But yeah, no, this was. I have very, very.
No,
fond-
I mean, getting to meet you guys through Reese and then kind of.
Yeah. No, I have very fond memories of the band with Karen, and there's actually some footage on YouTube of us at CBGB where we all seem to have really big hair, which I thought was very cool. And Karen originally played this really cool K guitar that she had like fixed up and painted or
It's
something.
in my closet. It's still
Which
here.
is, which now, of course, everyone's like, those are like Godhead. Everyone loves those Ks. And she had, of course, the fawn-colored Marshall head,
But then I wrote all over the front.
Which, yeah, but that, it's now it's a total collector's item because it's your handwriting. So anyhow, yeah. So this was, so I don't really have a favorite band of Susan's record, except Love Agenda is probably my favorite generally. And then I'll decide I like another one better. But Love Agenda was really a key record in the band's career, and it was on the charts, very high in the charts in England, and we did a great tour, and Susan Singer started getting more involved in the singing and in the writing,
and she wrote that,
and she started writing stuff, and so it was a real pivotal moment for the band and for me personally and creatively, and it was great. And it's hard to believe that it was like, 75 years ago or whatever.
I know.
It was, but, it was
years
like,
ago now.
it's hard to imagine, I just realized the other day that I played my first concert in front of people. And then I say concert, I mean in the junior high school auditorium. So in 1970.
Wow.
So it's kind of like, I mean, how long have I been doing this and why? I mean,
well, I think you're pretty good at
You
it.
wouldn't do it if you didn't have to do it.
No, I know. That's the thing. So I've been,
have to do it.
I've been, I sort of talk to other people about, especially when you're young and you hear that somebody was doing so, they said, well, I was a veterinarian for 20 years. And you go, 20 years? I can't believe it. Now it's like 20 years. Yeah. It's like, it's a couple records ago, it's that weird perception, that perceptual and, psychoneurological thing that happens as we age. Well, I'm speaking of the two of us. I'm sure you're a youngster. But I mean,
the time is spinning.
The time speeds by. And someone, I think I saw this online, someone said, well, it's like the roll of toilet paper. As you get closer to the end, it goes faster because there's less on the roll. And I thought that was a rather disgusting but apt metaphor.
That is quite apt.
It really is.
So, and you just hope you don't get to the cardboard.
Can make it be the spool of thread.
Much better.
That's better.
Something that is diminishing but going faster. Anyhow, that was a digression. You can probably leave out.
Or not.
Or not.
So how long was the Karen Haglof era of Band of Susans? How long did that last?
I think it was around 2 years.
Yeah, I was going to
say. Approximately, my central chronology is...
98 to 90 or...
Yeah, it was like 89 through part of 90.
We played the Rape Man Dinosaur Jr. things. That was 88, right?
That was 88. So it was actually started in 88. Yeah. It was basically 88, 89, I think would be reasonable. So I would say like around 2 years.
So
and absolutely critical years for the band, really getting the band off the ground and touring for the first time, and it was great.
And kind
No,
of cementing
it
the
was
sound.
great. It's kind of like I'm going, why did I decide to go to medical school? It's like, oh yeah, because I was working in restaurants. That's why I
Well, you made the right choice for yourself. No
well,
question about that.
I look at somebody like you or other people, from our era, Jonathan, or whatever, who kept playing all the way along.
Yeah.
You want that longevity and that kind of continuous career movement that I'm never going to have. I can make as many things that I want now.
On the other hand, I worked a day job for 25 years. So
most of us, and I also did.
So life takes us in strange twists and turns. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
But anyways, it was a great period for the band. It was great.
Yeah, it was good.
It was wild.
So the Peel Sessions album is part of that era. Did you guys play out a lot? I mean, were there a lot of touring during that era?
Well, we did a tour with Wire in 1988.
Right.
Which was a U.S. tour.
Okay.
And then the next big tour was the Dinosaur Jr., Rape Man, and Banna Susan tour of it was the U.K. plus it was one gig in Holland or somewhere else.
We did Roskilde, didn't we do the Roskilde Festival?
Oh, and then there was the Roskilde Festival in '89, which was great, which was in front of thousands of people. And people, for years afterwards, these little Swedish kids would come up and say, I saw you at Roskilde, It was sort of a legendary gig, and it was, I
had somebody stop me on the street at Broadway and 8th Street and say, I saw you.
I know.
Excuse me, are you that guitar player?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, we then settled into, over the years with Banna Susans, we settled into, in subsequent years, we would do, 6 to 10 weeks in the U.S. and 6 to 10 weeks in Europe. And I call this urban camping. I mean, it was a very low level tour. We carried our own stuff.
Yeah.
We were our own road crew. We slept on people's floors. And, and it was great. I'm not sure if I could handle that at the age I'm at now. But so we did. I mean, I have all our itineraries, and we played in. I think we played in 45 of the 50 states ultimately.
Oh wow!
Over the years, and we played in 12 foreign countries, which I've added up at one point. We never got to Southern Europe, but we really played all of Scandinavia and Northern Europe, and even the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and all kinds of cool places. So it was great. It was at the level we were touring, it was very grueling and tiring, and there was no money in it, but it was.
And was that
just
with Mark and
there was Paige Hamilton left the band, and then we had Mark Lonergan who stayed with the band, and then Annie Hussick. So for the last 3 records, the instability of the personnel sort of stabilized. Yeah. Although Ron, our drummer, couldn't make a coupled tour, so we had this fill-in drummer who was. We had 2 fill-in drummers, one of whose name shall not be mentioned. But then Ron was able to come back.
And we won't say who the other one was.
And then Ron was able to come back and tour on with the later things, which was great because Ron is just my favorite drummer, just a wonderful friend and everything else.
Yeah, great guy.
A wonderful guy, really. So the personnel stabilized, and then we basically did our last touring in '95, and that was also the year that Here Comes Success came out, which was our last full length recording.
Right.
And then there was like a compilation, and then there were a few other scattered things. But so the band really existed from '86 to '95.
Okay.
But I have a theory about that. I have a theory that unless you're, with very few exceptions, most bands have a good 10 years. And after that 10 years, things tend to be not so great.
Okay.
Now, there are a few examples. There are things that are totally the opposite, like David Bowie, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Well, but he was continually growing and changing.
Reinventing himself. But, a lot of the bands I really like and admire, they had a good 8 to 10 years of their prime. Mm-hmm. And then it was either retread or dissipation or problems. And so the point of this is that we had 9 years and there were 9 good years. And, I'm really happy that we were together for that long. everybody and their sister and brother are reuniting now, and every band that we ever played with is playing. But for a number of reasons, we'll never reunite the band. Partially because Ron, who had a stroke, can't drum, but
Right.
it's also,
I think the closest we kind of got was when we did that Sidewalks thing.
Yeah, we did a little sort of solo thing at Sidewalk, individual things. The thing is that we could never do the band again without massive rehearsals, because the kind of music we played was, even though it might have sounded like it was thrown together, it was orchestrated. Everyone had their parts. It was more similar to Glenn Branca or Reese Chatham in the sense that the parts were orchestrated, and they were, they weren't complicated to play, but they were defined.
Just you want here.
Yeah, it was very defined, and that's what gave us our sound. And, in a perfect world, if Ron was still able to, and we all had, tons of time, well, that might be a fun idea. But, Susan Stanger lives in London and in Ireland now. And, we've all moved on in our lives to different things. Yeah, we've moved on to different things. Because every few weeks, someone says, are you guys going to reunite too? Because I just saw, so-and-so, said no, not to. And so my feeling is, and one last thing about that, people say, are you going to go to see such and such a band? And I will say to them, listen, I saw them in their prime. I was young. They were young. It was a moment. And I treasure that moment and their sound. I don't need to see them now when we're old and they're old, and they're not going to be the same.
Just to remind us that we are old and they are old.
Yeah. I'm very happy with these memories of seeing some of these bands in their prime. And that's fine. I know many people feel the opposite, but I sort of feel like, okay, you did your thing and you did it well, and, somebody else now is in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm. Well, are you going to play out anywhere?
I'm spending a lot of time living up in the suburb of Boston now.
Uh-huh.
Where I live on my sister's property with my wife, and we're in this bucolic setting that is about as far away from the East Village as one could imagine.
Is that where you are now?
Yeah, that's where I am now. I'm in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, on a beautiful property, bucolic suburbs. I was doing a lot of solo guitar and electronics things in New York, and I also was playing with this band, Heroes of Tulik, and I also was playing with this band, the Wimbrels. No, I no longer can be in those bands because I'm not in New York enough. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping to work out a solo guitar and electronics thing so I can play out in Boston. Because I have some friends in the music industry in Boston, friends from bands and stuff. I know the guys from Mission of Burma. I know some other people. And so what I would do is, listen, can I open for you? Can I piggyback on one of your shows? And I have to work up to that. The stuff on my recent record does not lend itself so much to performance because it's layered and composed. And,
right.
I played every part.
Band of Susan's had 3 guitarists.
Exactly. So, but I am going to work up another more improvised ambient guitar and electronics solo set. And I hope to start playing out again because I do miss that. And I will, do some in New York as well, because I'm in New York for a few months and then I'm here for the rest of the time. After 40 years in the East Village, it's kind of like really fun to have peace and quiet. And I also have this on my sister's property, this old painter studio that I've converted to a music studio. Nice. So I can make all the noise I want and have all my guitars out.
Well, then that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty ideal.
Karen, do you have plans to play your new album out live?
We talk about it. I mean, my problem is, we made this in the studio, which was great. And my bass player, drummer, and keyboard player are all the same person. So,
yeah.
So it's like, okay. I mean, which is fine. I mean, we can adapt. I've worked with other bass players with my material, and there's a nice accordion player, Rembert Block, who, could probably we could segue some parts into other parts, but I haven't figured out how it would work yet. Charlie would definitely be the drummer. Right. He's instrumental for that, and then we'd have to figure out how the rest of it would go. But it could be done, and I would like to, and we're kind of talking about it, but it's a little
it's very tricky, after having been in bands and then not in bands, and then you realize just the logistics of getting people together for rehearsal at a time and everyone can do it in a place where everyone can get to. it's a lot of, especially in a city like New York, where people are generally doing like 20 different things with their lives. It's tricky. It's tricky to, put a band together. I mean, sometimes think, well, if I could just get a bunch of young, 30-year-olds to like, do my bidding, wouldn't that be fun? But I'm not really,
I don't know. Would that be fun? I'm not sure.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I don't know if that would be fun. I don't have acolytes. I don't have people lined up to be, to be my supplicants that are willing to do anything for me, like some people I know. So, it would be a little tricky. So I sympathize with you, Karen, too, in terms of the threshold of going from a recording to playing live and getting the rehearsals and, obviously, re-orchestrating and figuring out who's going to do what and who's going to do it.
And how we're going to make this,
daunting.
Yeah, this one part turn into something else, and I got to pop those loops now, which is not that hard now. I mean, it's like loop a bunch of stuff, but
Yeah.
Well, Karen, if you do, I just heard about a guitarist who might be interested in doing an opening slot, doing some electronic guitar work. So I'll hook you and this guy Robert up, and maybe we can get maybe we can get you two on a bill together.
Sorry, my power went out for a second in my apartment, but it's back on. Okay, there we go.
I was just telling Karen that I heard of a guitarist who might be willing to do an opening slot.
Some guy named Robert.
He does. He's looking to possibly do some electronic stuff.
Yeah, I can bring a lot of digital delays, so I sound like more than one person.
I do have a couple questions about Love Agenda. The first, it's 9 tracks. Is there anything left? Was there anything that didn't make the album that's out there that hasn't come out?
Yes.
It really isn't. There's, the only real Band of Susans outtake we have is we did a version of the, this was with Mark Lonergan. We did a version of The Last Time, the Rolling Stones sing, which I've actually put out on Bandcamp. But yeah, we didn't, because of our recording budgets and our time, I mean, we were never able to record extra stuff or stuff that didn't make it. So there's nothing left from that session. One of the fun things is that I got all the 24 track 2-inch multi-tracks transferred to digital. So I have all the multi-tracks for all of Band of Susans on my computer.
Oh.
So I can remix or spin off or cannibalize all the material.
Yeah, cannibalize. It's like,
so I've done that occasionally.
Do a little mining expedition in there.
Yes, there's one song on the last record, Frozen Flowers, Cursed Day. One of the songs, I actually took the drum part from a Band of Susans song and made a new song out of it.
Oh, cool.
And you would never know it. You would never know it because it's like the tag. It's the tag, this long drum tag on a song, but it worked perfectly. And the thing is that, we had really good recording engineers. We were in good studios and we kind of knew what we were doing. And so the drum tracks on those records are great. So every once in a while, if I'm stuck for an idea and I want to do a rock thing, I can just spin off the drum parts and use them and then make a new song out of it.
That is amazing.
Which is fun, and every once in a while,
there are some fun things about this day and age.
Yeah. No, it is having all that stuff. I had all the 2-inch tapes, and I couldn't afford to keep them in, climate-controlled storage. And so, even though you're not supposed to do it, I did what you're not supposed to do, which is I had everything transferred to digital, and I had to discard the tapes. I had to have them all baked. Because when you have tapes that have been sitting around for too long, they need to be baked. So it was quite elaborate, but it's really fun. So every once in a while, I'll pull up a multi-track, and in terms of outtakes, there are none, but there are lots of tracks that were never used, like individual parts. They were like, we're not going to use this, or, so every once in a while, I will do for my own pleasure, I'll do some kind of weird remix of stuff. And occasionally I put them out on Bandcamp for like 50 cents or zero,
Oh, that's
because it's just historical fun,
Just join Bandcamp. Everything I have is on Bandcamp
Oh,
now.
I love Bandcamp.
Bandcamp is great. I mean, it's good. That's good. It's definitely worthwhile, and it's I have a digital aggregator who puts out all my stuff and gets it to all the streaming services and
Yeah.
Amazon and all that stuff. So that's really helpful. But they let me, and I wasn't sure they let me do Bandcamp, but they said no, it's fine. So I can do stuff direct on Bandcamp. Like I put up a lot of the Band of Susan's 4-track demos that we all learned the songs from.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to Robert Paul's Bandcamp, you'll find all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, I will definitely.
Yeah,
Now
me
that
too.
And anything that you don't want to buy or listen to, I'll give it to you for free. So don't worry about it.
Hey, can I send you a CD?
Yes,
You
I
have
would
a
love
CD
that.
player?
Yes, I would love that. I will email you my address.
Okay, yeah.
Up in Boston, because that's where I'll be for a bit.
Mark, do you like a CD?
I love CD. You can't see, but, well, here, maybe I'll spin this around. My wife was so kind. When my oldest daughter went to college, she moved out, basically, to go to college, and she just kind of stayed where she's at. She turned her room into my podcast studio. So there's all my CDs.
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
And that's about half of them. I've got
Wow.
another, I'd say probably 1,000 in boxes that I have to put on the wall here.
Well, if you want another one, text me your address and I will send it out to you.
You got it. I'm a huge fan of Band of Susan's and all the other stuff surrounding your solo stuff, Robert stuff, which kind of brings me to, and Robert, you kind of touched on this a
There you
little
are
bit.
again.
Here I am. Sorry, I'm slipping.
Since you've got all the music and you've digitized it, is there a possibility of remastered Band of Susan's albums coming out?
I did some remastering a number of years ago for the stuff that was put on sort of in the digital aggregator, but I really screwed it up. I did not do a good job. I fooled with it too much.
Okay.
So one of my plans is to go back, because I've been in discussions with them and they say there's no problem. You don't have to start from scratch. You can just replace the audio song for song. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to remaster, not mix, remaster the stuff so it's closer to the original and it's just a little bit better, but still true to the original. There's not a lot of interest. There's not enough interest for me to totally do reissues. I have been approached by a couple people about one guy wants to do a double vinyl compilation, and it's all at his expense, and he wants to do it, and he'll pay for everything, and he'll give me some records. And so I'm all for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And, obviously I make stuff available on Bandcamp. I don't think there's enough of a market for a real re-release of stuff, given the fact that everything is available on, Spotify and the downloads and everything. But I am going to sort of make good on the stuff that's on there. It's not that it's bad. I mean, it's just that in listening to it, I feel I overdid
Looking back in retrospect,
a little too much fairy dust, I think is what it is. I think I was a bit
you're
dusted.
going for 2% a little too hard.
Yeah, a little too much fairy dust, and I'm going to unfairy dust it a bit. At least some of the releases when I have a chance. But I do, periodically. It's funny because I've been getting a lot of interest from Italy and Argentina.
Oh, wow.
For stuff. And these Argentinian radio shows keep calling me, and I'm doing interviews, and it's fun. I mean,
that's awesome.
It's really cool. And then there's some Italian stuff happening. I'm hoping that this vinyl thing will come out. I mean, I'll keep you posted about that.
Yeah.
I sort of dropped the ball in that because my wife got really serious pneumonia, and I was basically, she's better now, but I was taking care of her, and I sort of dropped everything.
Well, that's understandable.
I'm going to now get back to maybe pursuing some of these opportunities people have offered to do things, because I put out my own records, and I pressed only 300 on this one because normally I do 1,000 or 2,000, but then you end up having 500 records sitting around your apartment, and I don't really need it. So I did 300, and I'm
I've been going
them.
vinyl for that very reason. It's vinyl.
Yeah, exactly.
Interest would be, and
Yeah.
I really don't have the room for it.
Yeah, and and the other thing is that postage has gotten really, really expensive.
Yeah.
Like if I send one CD to Australia, it's like $20.
Wow.
And if I send one package of the CD and this media rate is still $4.
Yeah.
So in the last, I guess because the U.S. is such a poor, impoverished nation that somehow, postage has gotten crazy. But in any case, there are some of these opportunities that they come my way, and I'll listen to anybody. If somebody has a project they want to involve me with, I have a couple collaborations in the works. If someone says there's a guy in Poland who started sending me loops, and he's like, okay, let's do something. So I'm doing it because, I love collaborating. If someone wants me to work on their stuff, I'll do it. If they want
Well, the next one, you'll be coming in on mine.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
I mean, you're already in the pit on mine.
Right.
I can definitely
anytime
have some ideas.
If you know of anybody that wants, because you know what I do. Anyone who wants what I do, you know what I do, and I'm available. I'm available for free, for fun. Because that's what I do.
Well, I will keep that in mind too.
You should.
Well, so Robert, we'll start with you. What is the best way for people to find your music and pick it up for you?
Well, I think Bandcamp is a really good start. But for the Band of Susan's Batcat, that's for my solo stuff.
Right.
But all my stuff is available on Spotify and YouTube and Amazon and Apple Music. It's on all those streaming and download places.
Right.
If you want to find out what I'm doing or find out about me, I have a website which is cleverly named robertposs.com, which should be easy to remember. And you can go there, and there's a bunch of stuff, and there's links on that website. There's links to Band of Susans. There's links to my solo stuff. There's some stuff about Susan Stanger and some of the other projects I've been involved in. So I'm easy to get a hold of. And I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook under my own name. And Band of Susans is also on Facebook. So, we're very public. So,
yeah.
Karen,
what about your stuff?
I'm basically the same as Robert, except for under the name Karen Haglof, and I don't have a website. I do have a Facebook music page and Instagram, and everything is available, on streaming services, Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Bandcamp now. And soon I will have a YouTube video channel, but it's not up.
Great.
And that will be for the video aspects of, that'll come out, that'll roll out. I'm not going to have 12 videos ready by June 14th. I'll have 3. So more after that. So, that's another thing that will be at least look at things and hear them.
Yeah.
I should mention that I have 3 or 4 YouTube videos for songs off my latest release on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Which are kind of fun. And I just, I'm an amateur, but I string together things using, Final Cut Pro or iMovie and layer things. And so again, if you do a search on YouTube for Robert Poss, it'll come up.
I'm definitely going to look at your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple, I think they're kind of fun.
I'm actually looking at
my
More
stuff's
Snow
really
right
experimental.
I know. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Experimental, but hopefully hopefully people will get it.
I'm sure they will.
Understand it.
I am a huge fan of Band of Susans, and Love Agenda is one of the albums that I always point people to if we get into a conversation and I can bring up Band of Susans. And I wanted to thank you guys for that album, for the music that you guys, because honestly, Band of Susans really was a change in what I listened to. So I was big into Black Crowes, Verve, like a lot of psychedelic, long, jammy things. And I actually kind of went backwards because the first thing I heard was Here Comes Success, which I bought because I was a big car guy and I saw the Marlin on there. And I bought that, loved it, picked up the Now EP because it's got the Bonneville's Salt Flat car on it.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing, that's still to this day one of my favorite album covers of all time. And then Love Agenda was next, and it was just I mean, I just,
That's cool. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I went and I just picked them up as I could find them, and I went to Princeton Record Exchange and was always looking around for them over there, and it was a lot different from what I was listening to, and it was, you can be just as experimental as these long psychedelic jams without being long psychedelic jams. It can be it can be more sometimes industrial sounding. It can be more mechanical sounding, a little harder, and just be just as experimental. Harder music doesn't have to be Metallica. It can be.
Well, I'm glad we were able to corrupt you. I mean, I really feel, I'm very
the pathway that you were on.
That's great. That's a great story, and I love that you started with the later stuff and sort of worked backwards. That's really cool. I do feel about Love Agenda that no other record has as much guitar on it as that record. I mean, it's just blasting,
Yeah.
Everything is blasting guitars, and so in some respects that is my favorite, and it's it's definitely, we're definitely playing it. We're playing well on that one.
Well,
Great record.
Thank you guys for that music, for the current music, and for coming back on the podcast and doing another episode. It's been a while for both of you, and I really appreciate it. And let's stay in touch, and we'll
Definitely
do some more.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having us. And it's so great to see both of you.
Yeah, Karen, it's great to see you. Next time in New York, we'll get together for real.
Yeah, definitely, please.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Look at that. A kind of a Band of Susan's reunion. Maybe not a musical one, but a social one.
A duo,
A duo, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys ever collaborate.
Posh hag.
Yeah, there we go.
If you guys collaborate, let me know. That would be, we can talk to you, do a whole episode on your collaboration.
It's sort of a Simon and Garfunkel thing. Perfect, yeah.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.